Step 1, wake up early, gonna rise with the sun. Step 2, get some good, some food in you. Step 3, think real hard about what you wanna be. Step 4, fuck everybody, just do your thing.
Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. 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 Yo, set your affirmations, aspirations. I got shit to do, the aftermath of preparation. Good food, good mood, blood in circulation. One step at a time, yeah, that's how you make it. Set a goal you control and the steps you take them. I try to pick one thought, have some concentration. And if I make a mistake, it's called education. I try to do this every day, call it replication. Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. 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 Life ain't easy, yo, I think there's a reason though. Ups and downs, just like every different season, yo. Sometimes I'm high, other times I'm barely breathing, though. I always gotta fight and hide from the demons, yo. Negative thoughts are poison, they rot. Head full of flaws, so here come the clouds. They'll never stop unless I can swap all the bad for the good in my head when I'm lost. Yeah, so I'ma fake it till I make it. Positive thoughts are overtaken, I got patience. One day at a time is how you operate a cadence. A flow, you grow, you show yourself a foundation. Stay away from all the shit that causes temptation. I know that I like to do it cause it's sensation. I live my life in my head like a narration. Don't expect greatness, do my best, man, I'll take it. Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. 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 Wake up, today's gonna be a good day.
Wake up, really gonna rise with the sun. Step 2, get some good, some food in you. Step 3, think real hard about what you wanna be. Step 4, everybody just do your thing.
I know you told your friend you're not okay, and tell me what's wrong and why you never said you felt that way. And guess you're trying to stay strong and fake a smile until I look away. But I've known you too long, it hurts to watch your blue eyes fade to gray as you fade away, as you fade away.
Yeah, I'm about to fade away, cause every time I wake up I feel like it's Monday. Something's going wrong with all the chemicals up in my brain. All of a sudden I don't look at anything the same way. Gotta build up of my thoughts sitting in an ashtray. I'm sorry that I'm so inconvenient, okay. Just let me be me and I'll stay out of your way. I can see the way you look at me, I'm such a disgrace. I never really asked to be brought into this place. You wanna love me? Well then baby have a taste. All the highs and the lows, no you'll never be the same. I don't really wanna hurt you but I can't control the pain. If you're sticking by my side maybe we could be okay. Okay, maybe you could be the change I need today. I promise that I've never felt this way. I really hope that you will choose to stay through all the pain.
I know you told your friend you're not okay, and tell me what's wrong and why you never said you felt that way. And guess you're trying to stay strong and fake a smile until I look away. But I've known you too long, it hurts.
sorry about that. A little confusion for today. I was trying to do something different. I was trying to learn how to, like, I go through StreamYard for everything. And I guess there's other ways to do things. I was trying to set it up right. I didn't do it. So I ended up having to shut that down because I've got to be able to share my screen with you guys. And I'm unable to share my screen. I don't know what the heck is going on with this system. I'm like getting so frustrated. I'm like literally frustrated with YouTube, like beyond frustrated with YouTube. This is just nonsense. Whatever. Anyways, we're going to go back to the JonBenet Ramsey case. Many of you guys know this was the, I believe 1994, 1996. I think it was 1996 case where this beauty pageant child, well-known, was murdered, and she was murdered in her home. Well, many people for many years thought her family did it. Thought her mom or her father were responsible for her killing, because at the end of the day, let's be honest, parents are 93%. Let's not forget about statistics. We just learned about these things on the earlier live we did, and Eve was on live with us, and she gave us the statistics. 93%, leaving only 7% of somebody else being responsible, only 7%. And so the JonBenet Ramsey falls in that 7 percentile, right? This is one, even myself, but I never looked into it. I never looked into this case. Let's go back in time. This was, we ran this case to talk about it May 3rd, several months ago, well, a couple months ago. We ran this. So let me bring this in, and we're just going to hear. This is when BK came on panel and, helped, talked to me, collaborated with our thoughts on this. Many of you guys know that BK and I are not bestie, but we do know how to put our differences aside for the benefit of cases. This was one of those reasons. And actually, are one of those times. Actually, very surprised that he popped in on that particular day. So Karen G, nice to see you. D, it's nice to see you as well. Chatty Jenny, Jen, it's nice to see you. Amanda, Tanina, hopefully I said that right. I always script names. JPL. I'll go by JPL. I can't read the rest of it. Munch. So all you guys, Texaholic, nice to see you. Nice to see you here. So I'm just going to go over and just remind you of what we went over, because it's going to dovetail right into the new developments on this case.
When he gets in the back room, we'll bring him up. I'm interested in hearing his insight on this case. Let's turn my line
Time
on.
to do my
There
roots
he is.
again.
Let's bring him up.
Good morning.
Why, good morning.
How are you?
I'm doing well. Talking about a different case. What do you think about the JonBenet Ramsey case? What do you remember? You're around my age. We were young when this case came out.
I was. Actually, I'm 43.
I'm 42, so we were both around the same age.
I'm older than you, lady. Look at you.
He can be funny
actually,
every now and
like the
again.
JonBenet Ramsey was the thing that, like, I cut my teeth on. Like, that was the reason why I had an interest in true crime, was because of the JonBenet Ramsey case. And looking at everything from, their depositions to private investigators and the like. There's a private investigator who has passed on. I'm sure you know of his name. I forget his name right now.
Oh, no, I just happened to come across this. Jonathan was talking about covering it when he goes out to Denver. So I was looking into it, and I thought maybe it'd be just a change, from Summer Wells and something. And then I saw all this stuff going off in the news in the last 24 hours, and I'm thinking, what's going on? So, I'm just going off pure memory, 17-year-old memory. I was 16 at the time that this went on. And so, but it was I remember some major details of the case, which is funny because I remember the contaminated crime scene, them allowing to have people in and out of that house. You know, the Ramsey.
Fleet Jones and the neighbors.
Yep.
Yep.
And they were contaminating the crime scene. And I remember that when they did find her, the Boulder police had a lot of heat for that because they should have removed the people from the home when they
absolutely. Like, he was allowed to remove her from the cellar, bring her upstairs, and then cover her with a blanket from the house, which was a nightmare forensically because that had all sorts of, you know, transference type forensics involved with it. So it literally was a nightmare once he covered her up with the blanket.
Yeah. And not only that, but even, you know, they asked the family to help search for her in the home.
Absolutely, which is something they should have never done.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. There was a high-tech boot print that was found in sort of a rough area in the floor in the cellar. And the high-tech boot was, as you know, more oftentimes than not worn by law enforcement officials. But she also had the taser. She had the taser bruising, which the spacing between the bruising was very, very. It was, you know, very telltale sign of a taser. So the high-tech boot was something that they played into for a long time because it suggested someone outside of the house because there was no high-tech boot found in the home.
Right. And then with the taser, and if you equate, you know, that boot with law enforcement and the taser, law enforcement was carrying, I don't know if they were carrying tasers back then or not.
That's a good question.
You know, but this sparks my curiosity, you know, and how do you feel about the fact that we're finding out that 25 years later, there's still DNA that has not been tested? That blows my mind.
Me too. So there was an issue when they tested her bottoms to her pajamas initially. There was a hit for a male DNA. And at that point, there was some questioning whether or not it was an offender or someone that could have handled her pajama bottoms at the factory where they were manufactured. So what I know they're trying to develop now is they're essentially waiting on the DNA technology to catch up, where they can enter in a roundabout way, enter in what they have into a database such as Ancestry.com or whatever. But right now, the protocol for how much DNA you need to enter into the database is still lower than what they have.
Yeah. And I'm also curious, because I don't recall them ever stating that there was, that they believed that she was sexually assaulted. This was like, basically, she was bludgeoned to death.
They did say that there was some seminal fluid found on the scene.
I couldn't remember one way or the other. Yeah, that's sad.
I think that was a later report, though, Miss Betty. It wasn't like something they talked about initially. It wasn't until, I want to say his name was Lou, but I don't want to butcher it. But he was hired by the Boulder DA to sort of circumvent the situation. He was a retired homicide detective out of some jurisdiction somewhere, but a world-renowned sort of Sherlockian type of mind when it comes to looking at these things. He actually believed.
So just for everybody that's just joining in, we're going over the new developments of the JonBenet Ramsey case. This is a prior, what we're playing here is a prior segment that I actually did to touch on JonBenet in anticipation that this day would be coming forward. And we're going to get into a little more detail here in just a few moments. So stick with me.
In the intruder theory, because there was some broken glass in the window. There was some, in his context, there was some debris from the outside that came in the window with a potential abductor. But there was the suitcase that was placed at the bottom of the windowsill, looking like some sort of, booster or a step stool, if you will.
Right. What do you think, in your, you cover a lot of these cases as well. What do you think about, there was a specific ransom. I know in this article I was just reading, I remember this from way back when, but the ransom note,
The 118,000.
was so specific to the father's bonus.
Absolutely.
That it makes, I just don't see how anybody outside of somebody that knew that family and knew that family well would have known to come up with that specific amount.
I agree. I mean, it was essentially to the dime how much his Christmas bonus for that year was. It was roughly $118,000.
Yeah. And that's just insanity to me, because that tells you that it's somebody in their close circle. And
I would have to agree with you.
Close circle was most likely in that house at that time, contaminating it.
Yeah, or at least, at the very least, privy to a financial conversation between the Ramseys where that sort of information would be available to hear.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she also made mention of a small foreign faction, and there was many, actually a lot of the FBI or the alphabet people. They thought that that it seemed staged, like like a movie type ransom.
Yeah. And
actually, I don't hold me to it, but I don't know of another high profile case where there's actually been this a likened abduction to a ransom. Mm-hmm. We have not had a ransom type abduction in many, many years.
Many years, yeah. That's very, very uncommon. And when it is a so-called ransom, usually the person's already deceased.
Absolutely, you're absolutely correct.
So it just doesn't make sense. Did you hear that
okay,
a serial killer now has my address?
Is he already in prison? I hope.
Serial killer has my address. So again, that was a prior video clip that I was doing on JonBenet Ramsey when I found out that 25 years had gone by and still there was still DNA that had not yet been processed. And that blew my mind, that you would think that by now, all the DNA from this high profile JonBenet Ramsey case, that there would have been every stitch of DNA would have been tested at this point. Like there was major advancements in DNA history years ago, where it took such a minute amount of DNA and this amplification that they have with the DNA to give us a more accurate reading without so much DNA necessary to do it. And that you would think that when that advancement came out, that they would have been running to those the testing to have that stuff tested, because this case has been a high profile case. Think about it. Many of us knew about this case when it happened back in 1996. Okay, I was 17 years old. I'm 42, turning almost 43 in September. Like I've got a birthday where I'm turning 43 in 2 months. And this happened whenever I was 17 years old. And I remember this case because at this time, there wasn't a lot of this going on. And I think that's the reason why a lot of law enforcement agencies weren't up to proper handling of these types of cases, these missing children cases. There's been several high profile children cases, but the majority of those child cases came back to the parents. This was one that everybody thought it was the parents because it's 93% chance that it will be a parent involved or somebody that's very close to them of a parental figure. Wow, it's about to start raining again here in Florida. This is the year of rain. So long story short, this DNA in this case has never been solved, as many of you know. Many people thought it was the mother. The mother got frustrated with the daughter for whatever reason. Those things for many years. Eventually, I think it was in 2010, JonBenet's mother was cleared of any wrongdoing in this case. Yes, it took that long to clear those parents. Again, in 93% of these cases, astonishing 93% of these types of cases is the parents, okay? This is one that fell in that 7%, where so far, after all these years, it appears that everybody in that household has been cleared. And the reason why I'm saying that is because I saw some people saying that they believe it's the father, the brother. You know, for me, for many years, I thought it was the mother personally, you know, but this was prior to me actually looking into cases and really taking a deep dive to see what's going on. I still have never taken a deep dive into this case. I haven't, because it's so old. But, you know, we hear new information coming out all the time. And, you know, so I'm always constantly looking at, I saw the Dr. Phil episode. It left me with even more questions than I had before. Yeah. This whole case left us with more answers and more questions than answers. And it's crazy because this case, she was there. They had, like, it's not a Summer Wells case where, or Michael Vaughn or Cody Bigsby case where there's no child. They actually found the child. They actually have the child. They were able to do an autopsy on this child. They were able to determine how this child died, but still had very limited clues as to who could have perpetrated this crime. Limited clues. And I think a lot of the limited clues were a direct result of the mishandling of this investigation. And the mishandling of this investigation was at no fault of law enforcement, in my opinion. It was lack of training. So I guess it could be equated to law enforcement, but not in the sense like back in these days, there wasn't a lot of this going on. Now it's more common, which is insane to me. And I was just talking to another content creator, I want to say about an hour ago, and was explaining that I was going to be taking or discussing this case at 2. And I told them, you know, I'm tired of covering these children. I'm tired of it. It's breaking my heart. I know people think I'm this like crazy lunatic in some cases, right? I'm very controversial because I don't mind using my bullhorn. Ooh, the biggest deal in the world, right? But this stuff weighs on me. Seeing this stuff, and just like with all of you guys, it weighs on us. It weighs on us hard. And I'm just, to be honest with you, I'm tired of covering these cases, but there's so many. There's so many. And what sparked this whole research into this case was me stumbling across this. Now, this, I just want to make sure I put out there. I'm going to be stopping throughout this video. This is a video that I'm using under the fair use doctrine. And I am going to be playing segments of this to you. I just want to make sure that you guys know this is from something that came out a couple days ago from 60 Minutes Australia. Believe it or not, I actually spoke when the Gabby Petito case. I actually went on 60 Minutes. Oh, thank you, Kathy, a new member or newest member to the Coffee Club. Welcome to the Coffee Club, Kathy. But when I was out in front of Gabby Petito's, Brian Laundrie, I keep calling it Gabby Petito because it was Gabby's home. I mean, she was living there. Let's be honest. That was her home. And that's going to take us on another tangent. But I did speak to 60 Minutes, and I actually spoke to 60 Minutes Australia out there in one of our breaks from when we were on the bullhorn, because many of you guys know we were on the bullhorn every 5 minutes, or for 5 minutes every hour on the hour. We got on the bullhorns. We didn't do it all day. We took the other 55 minutes to cool off and do research or get out there in the field and search. So here is the documentary from 60 Minutes Australia that we're going to be playing here.
It's JonBenet Ramsey, the 6-year-old beauty pageant princess murdered in her own home. 25 years on, whoever did it remains free. For her father, John, that's unbearably painful. But he hasn't given up on the killer being found. In fact, with advances in DNA technology, he says there's a strong likelihood this mystery can finally be solved. Incredibly, though, John faces a roadblock in his search for the truth.
We do hope that this DNA stuff does yield who is responsible for this poor girl. Now, many of you guys have acknowledged that there was a person of interest that has now passed away. You know, could it be them? It's possible. It is very, very possible. But again, my biggest shock of this case is that we were 25 years later and there was still DNA that was not processed. You know, that still blows my mind. Why would a kidnapper stay in the house to write a ransom book? Well, it's a ransom note, but yeah, I get what you're saying. And why did Patsy wake up with the same outfit she wore to the party the night before? That is a great question. That is a great question. Maybe some other things happened that they don't want to disclose.
Very police who are investigating the crime.
Our next contestant is JonBenet Ramsey.
If JonBenet Ramsey was still alive, she'd be about to turn 30.
Just a beautiful, beautiful little girl, you know. And these pageants are tough for anybody to be involved in them. It, especially at her age, is being trained and worked for this. You know, it's tough to be in for parents as well as the kids. So she, you know, people state that she didn't want to do this, her mom wanted to do this. That was all speculation. We don't know. We don't know. But definitely a beautiful young girl that seemed to have everything in life almost painted for her, and it was snuffed away.
32. Instead, the little girl who loved to show off in junior beauty pageants only made...
It wasn't until this photo right here that I realized how much of her mother she looked. She looked like she was a spitting image of her mother. Yeah, Amanda, that's right. Amanda just said, I think someone was jealous of her, in my opinion. It's possible. Or jealous of the family. You know, idolizing the family, wanting to cause the family. Who knows? I'm ready to find out the answers.
To 6. On Boxing Day 1996, she was found in the basement of her home, beaten and strangled to death.
JonBenet Ramsey.
With JonBenet's murder.
JonBenet Ramsey.
JonBenet's murder stunned the world, but a quarter of a century later, the killer remains unknown. For John Ramsey, that's inconceivable and unforgivable.
Now, John's going to say some things in here, and I'm going to stop it, and we're going to have a conversation about it, because I do believe it goes right in line with a lot of the stuff that we've been talking about with the other cases.
We've lost a beautiful child, and this is a...
Look how old he looks now. Remember how young he looked when all this went on? You know, now his wife, excuse me, his daughter is gone, and his wife died of cancer. And she's no longer with him, and he has just aged so, well, he's up there in age anyways, but he has aged quite a bit from what we've seen a quarter of a century ago.
Creature that did this, that is out there and could possibly do it to another child.
And there's nothing saying, because we don't know who this person is. Who's to say this person didn't do this to another child? Who's to say it didn't happen to another child? It very well could have. We won't know until we find out who it is.
Not knowing who killed his daughter has consumed John, but not broken him. Has what you've wanted ever changed?
No. We've wanted an answer. It's not going to bring JonBenet back. Our loss is our loss. It's permanent. But it needs to be answered. And why? Why did this happen?
You'd think justice for JonBenet would be everyone's goal. But in this very public and controversial case, that may not be so. John says it's still possible to find the killer, and as you'll see, he thinks he knows how to do it. But to succeed, he says he has to overcome a substantial hurdle: the police.
That is right. JonBenet Ramsey's family has been fighting with police to try to get their stuff processed. I am so sorry. We back the blue here on the Bullhorn Betty channel. However, it is disgusting to me, absolutely disgusting to me, that we are a quarter century into this case and not all the DNA has been processed. And this man, now I'm sorry, I know people have their speculation of this family, but when I see that man talk into the screen just a few minutes ago, he seemed legit to me. I am not getting any signs of deception from him. As a matter of fact, I see a broken man that has overcome a lot. That's what I see. Now, I could be wrong. I could be wrong. But at the end of the day, he's the only one still fighting this DNA and getting this DNA processed. This is the man that's fighting for that. And that's her father. So if a man had gotten away with it, why would he still be here a quarter century later fighting for the DNA to be processed? We have to take that into consideration. It absolutely, Ange, absolutely unexcusable. I'm sorry. That is a fail. You failed this case from the beginning. You continue to fail this case even 25 plus years later. A family should not have to fight with law enforcement to get things like evidence processed. And that is exactly what DNA is. Evidence.
He accuses detectives of never investigating the murder properly, instead jumping to false and hurtful conclusions about the crime.
They solved it in their minds on the first day that it was the parents. And we just got to find the evidence to be able to prove that. But we know it was the parents because it's always the parents.
It's always the parents. I hate when I do that. It's always the parents. Okay? That's what he said. Why? Why did he say that? Let's go back. Let me get back over here. Let's go back and listen to that.
Be able to prove that. But we know it was the parents because it's always the parents.
It's always the parents. Why? Why did he say that? Because 93% of the time, a whopping 93% of the time, it is the parents. So whenever you're looking at Michael Vaughn's case, Summer Wells' case, Cody Bigsby's case, and you wonder why they're focused on the parents and why the parents haven't been cleared, it's most likely because 93% of the time, they are responsible for what happened to their child. And that is not a statistic we can get away from. It's just not.
Back in 1996, this sprawling house in the US town of Boulder, Colorado, was home for John, his wife Patsy, their son Burke, and the very happy JonBenet.
This is JonBenet. She's 4, Burke is 7, and we'd like to welcome you to our home and wish you a very Merry Christmas.
She was a spark plug. She was very extroverted. You know, we say she showed up in life, was like, ta-da, I'm here, you know. And that just was her personality. And I remember one day I came home from work and I guess I had a frown on my face. And she said, Dad, I don't like that look. So I kind of put on a fake smile and she said, that's better. And that's just who she was.
Small and quiet, Boulder was the perfect place for the Ramseys to raise their children. But what made it attractive was also its biggest disadvantage when the unthinkable occurred.
Crime scene investigators are still combing through the home. Police haven't named any suspects, but curiously, they are saying that the public at large is not in any danger, that there is not a random killer on the loose.
The local police had no...
I wonder if they still feel that way today, because again, this was what you're looking at right here. That reporter was from a quarter century ago, and they said there's not this person because why? They thought it was the parents. Why did they think it was the parents? Because they botched the crime scene. They allowed people in and out, walking around this house during the missing person aspect of it. Then when they found JonBenet Ramsey downstairs in the boiler room, the father covered her up and took her upstairs. And that was a forensic nightmare, as Benny Keys stated in that May 3rd segment that we did on this channel.
No homicide experience and weren't well equipped to handle the investigation into JonBenet's murder. Not the detectives were prepared to admit it.
Now, this is a police department that mostly deals with traffic tickets and college kids setting couches on fire during spring break. The same two detectives that are on the case today were there 25 years ago. Hadn't changed. One of them got an award for solving a bicycle theft ring.
It doesn't make any sense, John, that more experienced detectives, officers with greater expertise were not brought in to try and solve this.
I'm surprised they didn't bring the state law enforcement in there. Whenever you're hitting a wall, let me just give you guys some tidbit of advice. And you never know if it will ever happen to you or not. Okay? Ooh, here comes my sorry guys, my allergies. Excuse me. Sorry guys. You're gonna have to deal with my allergies for a while. I don't know how the people on TV deal with it. Like, how do you deal with sneezes? I never hear the news people with sneezes. I need their remedy how not to sneeze on when I'm on a program. But these officers were not equipped to handle this case. They botched it. They allowed the family to stay in it. And now he's telling us right here that the same lead detectives on this case 25 years ago are still the same lead detectives on this case. And this is a tidbit of advice from Bullhorn Betty. If you ever are in a situation where your loved one is killed and you're getting nowhere with the local police, you campaign to make the state police get involved in the case. You plead with the state police, you become that pimple on their butt until they do something. And so far in this case, like right now, we're better prepared for things like this than we were back when when this happened to JonBenet Ramsey. For example, they have the Amber Alert. They did not have the Amber Alert back when JonBenet Ramsey, or the Endangered Person Alert back when JonBenet Ramsey disappeared. Remember, she was a missing person before they found her in the boiler room. Secondly, what was I going to say? I just lost my train of thought. So they found her in the boiler room. She was strangled. And that's about all that we knew at the time. He appears, I don't know how to explain this. There obviously appears to have been something else that went on in that home. I mean, 25 years later, at this point, the parents have been cleared. He was cleared early on in the case. His wife was cleared in 2010. I heard that the son, her brother, was cleared several years after the case as well. I don't know if that to be fact, because I tried to find the article with that and I could not find it. But if I recall correctly, the dad and the son were cleared around the same time. But again, could absolutely be wrong about that. But I do know for a fact that her mother was cleared in 2010 of any wrongdoing. So this makes you want to believe that it's possible. But if somebody came in that home and heard her, I have to believe that it was somebody close to this family because of that ransom note. But other than that, I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. That was just unacceptable. But it's big egos and
Oh, but what I was going to also say is that at this point, I would be campaigning to have at least cold case detectives review this case. Whenever it's gone on for, we can all agree. And let me just, by the show of ones, who agrees that whenever you have a case that has gone cold, it's probably time for some new eyes to look at that case? Do people agree with that? If you agree with that, put a 1. If you do not agree with that, put a 2. Yeah, Irene, I don't believe it was a stranger at all. I don't believe it was a stranger. I believe it was somebody close to that family, somebody that smiled in their face, somebody that shook their hand. But I honestly believe at this point, the two police officers that were on this case 25 years ago should not be the police officers still handling this case to today. And why hasn't the FBI gotten involved in this case, or have they? Why hasn't the state police gotten involved in this case, or have they? Or have they? I don't know. I don't know. We're not hearing that. But I definitely think that at this point, somebody else needs to be involved in this case.
arrogance and lack of knowledge. And you combine those together, that's a pretty dangerous cocktail.
He's right.
It was clear from the beginning that this was a crime like no other. The first John and Patsy Ramsey knew about it was when they woke up early on Boxing Day and discovered JonBenet wasn't in her bed. Concern became panic when the couple then found...
There's that book that they were talking about. Look how long this letter is. And the handwriting looks almost shaky. Like, if this is the actual, which I believe that they've got pictures of this actual letter. Look how shaky. So it was somebody that was very nervous that was writing this letter, or somebody that potentially is much older, in my opinion. Because you can see clearly the hesitation in almost every single letter.
Found a note saying their daughter had been kidnapped and demanding $118,000 for her return.
What's going on there, man? We were kidnapped. There's a ransom note here. It's a ransom note? Please. Okay, what's your name? Are you Kathy Ramsey? I'm the mother. Oh my God. Please.
Patsy Ramsey's 911 call certainly got police attention. But for the next 6 hours, with no sign of JonBenet, confusion seemed to be driving the search. The crime scene was contaminated, and early clues were either overlooked or discarded.
The case was a catastrophe.
And I want to talk about the discarded evidence. This is where we go back to Gabby Petito. Many of you guys know we went out there after Brian Laundrie's remains were found and they opened up Myakkahatchee Creek Environmental Park. We found a lot of stuff. One, potential animal bones out there that should have been cleared or discarded from their search area, and the water bottle. The water bottle was in that area. It had not been collected. It had been under grass. It had been like there was a lot of high grass, but it was noticeably there. We found it fairly quickly when we came around the corner. Law enforcement was on scene when the discovery of the water bottle took place. We asked law enforcement when we found it if they were going to collect it, that we felt because of the writing on it, because we didn't have internet out there. We felt based on the writing that it was very Zen-like water bottle and that it appeared to have been something that Brian and Gabby would use. It wasn't until we left the Myakkahatchee Creek Environmental Park and got to, real life and had internet again, that we started looking and scanning through pictures of Gabby Petito and Brian Laundrie and came across the water bottle in the truck as well as on her backpack. And that's when we reached out to law enforcement and asked them if they wanted the water bottle. They stated no yet again. It wasn't until about 2 hours later, after us making a stink about this water bottle and why it was never collected when it was in the search area, why, right? So they ended up calling us back and having us turn that water bottle in. That water bottle went to the Denver FBI, and it's, from my knowledge, still in their possession to this day. To this day.
There's so much that does not make sense on this case, including, and probably especially, the police behavior. No one knows what evidence is gone because it was so massively goofed up.
Is your investigation focusing inside the Ramsey family or outside the Ramsey family as far as suspects?
Paula Woodward was a Colorado TV reporter when the story broke. She still remembers the chaos of the day, as well as the biggest police mistake of all: how JonBenet's body was discovered in the Ramsey's basement.
Her body was found by her father 6 hours after police were called, when the only detective in the house said, "Hey, why don't you look around?" That was one of the things that was just so unforgivable. Think what would have happened if the police had found the body had stayed where it was, instead of the father picking her up and running her upstairs.
What was that moment like, John?
Well, when I first found her, it was just a rush of, thank God I found her. And it was a relief, like a overwhelming relief that I'd found her. And then I realized pretty quickly that she wasn't alive. And I just screamed. And
that had to have been extremely hard for that father, especially. I know we all speculate that the family had something to do with it, but this truly is a case where I believe the family had nothing to do with it and had the stigma over them. And think about how heartbreaking it was for a father to find his daughter and then realize that she's no longer on this earth, that she's done what to the other side. That's got to be the most excruciating pain for any parent. I mean, it's one thing, it's painful no matter if you're a parent of someone that has passed away or not, but it is quite different when you actually see your child in that condition. It's sad. Wish I'd get on the right page.
But I found her.
Like John, Paula Woodward believes the investigation by local police was doomed because detectives instantly assumed one or both of JonBenet's parents had killed the little girl.
I did not kill my child. Quit screwing around asking me about things that are ridiculous. Let's find the person that did this.
What difference would it have made if experienced detectives, homicide detectives, had been brought in from day one?
I don't know. I do know that all of this incompetence and ineptitude would not exist if qualified homicide detectives had been on the scene. There was just nothing that was followed that was homicide protocol, nothing. And then they began this.
That is very important. None of the homicide protocols were followed. And they still did not stop what they were doing and say, hey, this is above what we know how to do. We've never handled anything like this. We need help. We need resources. And they just kept going and going and going and going and going and just botching and botching and botching. Now, many of us, I still see some of you guys responding in here, and you're allowed to have your opinions. I mean, that's perfectly fine. If you think the family did it, we're not going to, badger you or anything like that. You're entitled to your opinion as to what happened. But if we think about this, if it wasn't for the botched investigation and it wasn't for law enforcement doing such a deplorable job on this case, would that have entered our mind back then that the parents were involved if this investigation was conducted appropriately and properly? Because somebody just put up here about the 10 cigarette butts outside of the window. That would show evidence of somebody being there and watching. There's a lot of things in here that could have gleaned our minds. We've been thinking for a quarter of a century that the family has done this. And then when we learn, because of the botched investigation and the fact that the same law enforcement officers are still on this case, the same ones that couldn't solve this case to begin with are still running this investigation, that to me is still botching this investigation. Get those yahoos off this case. Put people on this case that know how to run a criminal investigation, a murder investigation. Get the state police involved. Get the FBI involved. It's still not too late. Just my opinion.
Deliberate campaign of leaking misinformation to what was a gullible press.
Some media outlets and the police focused on the sensational aspects of the case.
But added to gullible was insatiable. When it was revealed JonBenet was a child beauty queen, the media couldn't get enough of the story, which was the worst news for John and Patsy Ramsey.
4 days after the murder, the first child beauty pageant picture appeared, and I was hooked, as well as national and international press. They just zoomed in. I think that was probably the single most important factor in the case. And what happened was that fascination turned into the judgment, and the judgment was, I would never let my child do that.
Do you think?
But there are many kids across this country, children, that are part of these beauty pageants. Why? Because they're lucrative. You can win thousands and thousands of dollars. It helps you go to Miss America, which helps pay for your college and puts you on a road for success. So while many people out there wouldn't do or go down this road with their child, there are thousands of people across the United States and across the world that do. And just because you won't do it doesn't mean it's wrong for other people. They did this potentially because JonBenet Ramsey wanted to do it, because Patsy Ramsey wanted her to do it. Who knows what the reason for it is? But what I can tell you is they should not be judged, because thousands of children across this country do this very thing and still do this very thing to this day.
I think that JonBenet's involvement in beauty pageants was a factor here.
She was an extrovert. So it kind of fit her personality. In fact, we used to joke, we said, JonBenet needs to lose one of these pageants so she understands you don't always win in life. It needs to be a life lesson. Patsy's been accused of dragging JonBenet to these pageants and living vicariously through her. That wasn't the case at all. JonBenet loved it. She had fun with it. And
so there you have it. People didn't believe these stories when these people were telling these stories 25 years ago. But yes, children do actually like being involved in these types of pageants.
And they had fun together doing it.
The photos of a perfectly coiffed JonBenet as a beauty queen, combined with plenty of rumour and gossip, seemed to sway most of the public that John and Patsy were involved in something sinister. No number of denials, not to mention a lack of any evidence, could convince them otherwise. For years, the case dragged on. Sadly, in 2006, Patsy Ramsey died of cancer. But then 2 years later, a breakthrough of sorts. The Boulder District Attorney announced DNA from an unknown man had been found on clothing JonBenet was wearing when she was murdered.
When the district attorney apologized, she was very sincere about it. We appreciated that step, but we looked at it as just a step. It wasn't a celebration yet. We hadn't solved the problem. But we eliminated one of the obstacles to solving the problem. That's how I looked at it.
The discovery of DNA had been made possible through advances in technology. It cleared John and Patsy once and for all, but...
Again, we have to, they have been cleared. We have to, potentially take our minds off the idea that they were responsible and start looking at who was responsible. And law enforcement knew this over a decade ago. They knew neither one of these parents were involved in their child's death a decade ago and still chose not to process all the DNA in this case. That is just adding insult to injury, in my opinion.
But it didn't reveal the murderer.
And never mind the fact that Patsy lost her life never knowing who took her daughter. I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it.
The investigation stalled again.
Ultimately, a DNA match led to D'Angelo.
Now to a break in a case cold for 44 years.
But then in 2018, the best news so far for John. Similar DNA technology was used to identify and catch America's most wanted serial murderer and rapist, the Golden State Killer.
I had a crash course at one of the labs for about an hour. I was like, holy mackerel, there's more to this than I thought.
Learning a little bit about DNA gave John a great deal of hope. He reasoned if the Golden State Killer could be found, so too could JonBenet's murderer.
And let's use the latest technology, stuff we have that's come along in the last 10 years. And let's see what we got then.
So at long last, JonBenet's killer could be found?
Absolutely, yes.
CeCe Moore is no cop, but her DNA detective work has helped crack more than 200 cold cases in the past 4 years. What she does is called DNA genealogy, and it was first developed to help people track down their long-lost relatives on ancestry websites. But these days, CeCe uses it to hunt for criminals.
So it's like a big puzzle. We have to put all the puzzle pieces back together, little by little by little. So what I'm doing all day long is building the family trees of these.
Actually, that's wrong. She was actually excluded from that letter as being the potential person that wrote that letter. That's one of the reasons why she was cleared in 2010. And again, it doesn't change the fact of this foreign male DNA that was found on JonBenet Ramsey's clothing that she was wearing at the time. So I want to make sure that there's, that yes, that's what we heard back then, but over the last decade, that's not what we've discovered. And what I mean by we is the investigation. And the investigation, let's be clear here, JonBenet Ramsey's parents have been fully cleared from any involvement in this case. Fully cleared. Okay? That we don't have fully cleared parents in Michael Vaughn's case. We do not have fully cleared parents in Cody Bigsby's case. We do not have fully cleared parents in Summer Wells' case. But we do have fully cleared parents in the JonBenet Ramsey case. So I want to make sure, and again, you guys are allowed to have your opinions and speculation, and that's fine. I don't want anybody badgering, but I want to make sure that we're super clear, because I don't think that handwriting was any match to Patsy.
Individuals that are sharing DNA with this unknown suspect. When I do believe I have identified that DNA contributor, it's a very strange feeling to know that I'm probably the only person in the world, other than that killer, that knows what they did. It is a very heavy moment.
If given the chance, CeCe is confident she could help find whoever murdered JonBenet Ramsey 25 years ago. The case of JonBenet is one of the most enduring unsolved cases in the world. What would it mean to solve this case?
There are people all over the world that want to see her killer brought to justice, who want to know what happened and who want the answers.
If the DNA found on JonBenet is viable, how long could it take to catch her killer?
It might only be a matter of hours before that DNA contributor is identified.
It's
now the question I have. If were all the people in and around JonBenet Ramsey at this time, 25 years ago, Did they get buccal swabs? Are these people's DNA sitting in a database to be compared to the DNA sampling that they're going to be getting or have gotten? Is there, in order for you to match DNA, you've got to have something to match it to. How bad did they botch this case? Do we have all their DNAs? That's my question. And so far to this day, I have not received an answer on that one way or another. It hasn't been alleged in any news articles related to this case of how many people actually had buccal swabs taken.
It's a substantial boast to make that all these years later, identifying JonBenet's killer could happen quickly and easily. And CC's colleague, Dr. Ellen Greytack from Paraben Nanolabs, agrees. She says DNA technology is now much more intricate and therefore much more accurate.
The work that we do is really sort of a new way to think about how you can treat forensic DNA. Traditional forensic DNA looks at DNA like a fingerprint. You can match it to a database or to a suspect who's already been identified, and it's great for that if the person you're looking for is in that database or is one of the suspects you've already identified. But if they're not, it really couldn't tell you anything more. And so that's where we come in, is using the DNA in a different way to actually try to generate new leads in those cases to help figure out who that person could have been.
And what is it that's different about the way you analyze DNA?
In a traditional forensic profile, they're looking at around 13 to 20 different spots in the DNA. We're looking at around 1 million.
Wow.
So it's just a big difference in scale. And so we're looking at a lot more data, which means we can do a lot more.
That's the amplification, I believe, that they're talking about here, that we were just talking about earlier in this segment.
With that DNA.
Is now the time to retest the DNA in the JonBenet case?
I think now could be the time.
It's precisely what John Ramsey wants to hear.
And I got to say, it was time 15 years ago. It was time 10 years ago. It was time 5 years ago. It was time 2 years ago. It was time 6 months ago. This is a long time coming. This has been a long time coming.
He sees this new DNA technology as the key to solving his daughter's murder. But he says whenever he's asked the Boulder police to look into it, he's been met with ambivalence.
Take the samples that have never been tested from the crime scene, use an outside lab to do the testing, the latest technology that's available, and let's see what we can do. But to do nothing continuously after 25 years just is not acceptable anymore.
But here's where the story...
And I have to agree with those sentiments. It's not acceptable. Prairie, you may think that John knows what happened. I personally don't. I really don't. I think this case was botched. I think we were fed a lot of misinformation many years ago, and we relied on that misinformation. And I think we're going to be very shocked when this case is solved. And, and I myself, I want to make sure I'm very clear. I myself thought the parents were involved. I myself thought the parents were involved until I ran a segment on JonBenet Ramsey earlier, like a couple months ago, and I looked into it and I realized that the parents had been fully cleared of any wrongdoing in this case. And that is when I started looking more under the hood related to this case. And then we knew that we had found out a couple months ago that the DNA had not been, all the DNA had not been processed yet. And I was wondering why it had not been processed yet. And BK, concurred that, this stuff should have been done. We can all concur that this stuff should have been done years before now. But I knew based upon that article I read a couple months ago that stuff was going to start moving on this case. So when this popped up in my stream, I'm like, okay, it's time to revisit this. And this video from 60 Minutes Australia was so good in explaining and really honing in that I thought it was very important, if you guys haven't seen it, to see it. And that's why we're playing it here today. And then we're going to go over another article There is a link pinned up at the top if you guys have any questions or would like to speak about this case. Come up, not quite yet, but we will bring you in shortly.
Becomes even more frustrating. John Ramsey has never gotten along with the detectives in charge of the investigation. He says they
you weren't here for the beginning. Yes, both of the parents have been cleared. Both of the parents. John was cleared years before Patsy was cleared. Patsy was cleared in 2010 after she had passed away. Absolutely, they have been cleared. It has been public notice, public record, everything. The parents have been cleared in the eyes of law enforcement. Maybe not in the eyes of the public, but they have definitely been cleared by law enforcement. Absolutely, without a doubt, have been cleared. So yeah. And again, like I said, I truly believed the parents were involved in this. It wasn't until a couple months ago when I was doing my research on this particular case that I realized that both parents had in fact been fully cleared of any wrongdoing, and the son.
always suspected him of being involved in the crime. And because of that, he's now accusing them of not wanting to help. He believes police should hand over the DNA found on JonBenet's clothes so that it can be properly tested by experts like CC Moore.
People write me every single day asking me why I haven't solved it. I can't solve it if I don't have access to the DNA and have the agency invite me to be part of their team.
To think that in the archives of the Boulder Police Station is...
I think it might be time for us to start getting together and working an outreach with other creators and starting a campaign to reach out to the Boulder Police Department, the state attorney, the politicians in this state, and demand that they turn that DNA over if they are unwilling to process the DNA. Because at this point, this is ridiculous. We have all these advances in technology. This country wants to know what happened to this little girl. It's been far too long. I am imploring any law enforcement to please cooperate in this investigation. I have never in my life ever begged for law enforcement to cooperate with their own investigation before. This is the first. Right here on July 26th, 2022, I am demanding that law enforcement cooperate in their own damn investigation.
Is the remaining DNA that was found on JonBenet, and that you have the ability to today solve this case, yet they're not handing it over. That's heartbreaking.
It is heartbreaking. If their reasons are anything less than transparency, than full transparency, it is heartbreaking.
How many people think the reason why they don't want to do this is because they screwed up this case so badly that this will forever be a stain on their investigation and in their name? I'm starting to feel that way because I have never in my life seen any law enforcement stop or hinder their own investigation. And it sounds to me like they are literally hindering their own investigation.
Desperation, John Ramsey is petitioning the governor of Colorado.
Good. We need to be doing that.
Local police to hand over the DNA samples they've collected. It's not too much.
Who would like to spearhead getting us the governor's information? Does somebody have the governor of Colorado's information? I'd like the email and telephone number of the governor of Colorado's. Somebody has it or can get it, please post it in the chat.
To ask after all these years, is it, John?
No, it really isn't. And the comments that people have left as to why they're signing the petition was really pretty heartwarming and overwhelming. And they basically said, look, a child was murdered and we need to solve it. We need to put all our resources available and solve it. And that's not happening. And so that's our frustration.
So are you hanging your hopes on this new technology?
We want to do whatever can be done technically and resource-wise to find the killer of our daughter. And if we do that and we can't, then we'll have to live with it. But to not do it is criminal.
Oh, that just gives me goosebumps. That just gives me, I mean, my whole, everything is just, and he's absolutely right. To do this testing and find out nothing new, at least it was done. To not do it and never know is insanity to me. And I don't understand how any law enforcement can't. Why wouldn't people not be just, why wouldn't they just say, here's the evidence, send it to the lab to process. This is a child case. The FBI, send it over to the FBI lab over in Denver, right? That's where Gabby Petito's bottle is. That's where they've solved that case. That's also the same outfit. Denver, Colorado is the same FBI outfit that helped solve the case for Kylen Schulte and Crystal Turner. So what gives here? What seriously gives here? Does Boulder just want us to think it's the parents until the day we die, when they themselves have cleared the parents?
And just negligent and lazy.
I don't think it's laziness.
John welcomes all the help he can get. And as you'll see, some of it is coming from the most unlikely places.
We're releasing the recordings now because we want to find the killer of JonBenet.
Prairie, that's a great question. My response is it was somebody very close to the family. It's somebody that they broke bread with. It's somebody that they knew. It's somebody that they knew. Without a doubt. It was probably somebody in that house acting like they were searching for that little girl. That's how disgusting it is. I truly believe that somebody they knew is responsible for this. I really do. Did I once? Of course not. Like I said, I was on, it was the parents. I was on, it was the parents until 2 months ago when I looked at all the details of this case again. Because I was told when I was 17 years old that it was the parents. They just didn't have enough evidence, and that they thought it was Patsy, not the father. But they just didn't have evidence to prove it. And she went through her entire life to death being blamed for her own daughter's death. And then after she died, she was cleared. That's sad. That's sad. I feel bad.
We believe he's still out there.
It's been a long and exhausting 25 years for John Ramsey. As if the murder of his daughter wasn't torment enough, he's also endured the death from cancer of JonBenet's mum, his wife Patsy. As well, he's faced constant scrutiny and often...
That is a good point, Valkyrie. Valkyrie's Corner made a valid point. Women brag to each other about how much their husband's bonuses are. Also, people from the same company going out, and this is discussed, I heard your bonus was big. I mean, how do we know that, because some of these people's bonuses are public, right? Like whenever I was working for an insurance company, it was Bankers Life Insurance many, many years ago. And I was selling annuities, Medicare supplement, life insurance, all this other stuff I was selling. Our bonuses were on a board because it made the competition more tight. It pushed people, especially somebody that was always the top winner. When he found out he was number 3, it made him work 10 times harder. Our bonuses were public in our company. True story.
Suspicion from the world's media. Even when he remarried, there were headlines. His new wife, Jan, couldn't believe all the attention.
When we ended up, after we were married, on the front page of the Globe magazine, and I was shocked.
But throughout it all, John's fight to find the truth about JonBenet's murder hasn't wavered. And while he's been hugely critical of the local Boulder investigators, there has been one police officer he says is a hero.
Tonight, it's one of the most sensational, unsolved crimes in U.S. history. Great pleasure to welcome to Larry King Live tonight, Blue Smith,
Retired Detective Lou Smith, an outsider from nearby Colorado Springs, worked right up until his death trying to find JonBenet's killer.
I believe this case can be solved because a detective always believes that the case can be solved. It's not a question of solving it. It's just a question of when it will be solved.
Lou.
Okay, and this is coming back to the letter. This letter, if you notice, one is, and I just said this for those that are just now tuning in, is one of two things. Somebody was writing it, which was absolutely shaking at the time they wrote this. Nervousness, like a fish out of water, scared that they're going to be caught. Look at the shakiness of the print. Again, not the print of Patsy Ramsey. Okay? If we take that the fact that somebody was actually in the home, is it really that far-fetched that they would have picked up a paper from inside that home to write a ransom letter? And why was the ransom letter 3 pages long? And if it wasn't somebody that was younger and nervous when they were writing this, and you see the shaking pattern the whole time, I mean, this looks like somebody's hand that was like this. So it was either somebody that was very nervous when they wrote this letter, or it was somebody that was much older, an older person that has, you know, as you age, your hand starts shaking. It looks like rushed writing. I've done rushed writing before and never have shaking in my letters. I mean, there's look at this. There's shaking patterns throughout every single one of this letter, as if the hand is just shaking like this. I've written things really quickly and really sloppy, but my letters have never looked like I'm actually writing like this. This is what the each and every one of the letters look like. No, Amy, you're not blocked. I see you. But this is what looks like the way that it was written. It looks like somebody's hand was just shaking as they were writing this. And they couldn't control the shaking of the hand as they were writing this letter. That's what it looks like to me. Again, I could be absolutely 100% wrong about it, but that's what I see when I look at every single one of these letters.
Was kind of a legendary detective, retired, solved over 200 homicides in his career, many of them cold cases. Lou felt it was a kidnapping gone wrong.
Lou Smith died 12 years ago, but video and audio recordings he made while he was still investigating the murder have now been aired in a Discovery Plus documentary called JonBenet, What Really Happened. His daughter, Cindy Mara, says this is the case her father always wanted to solve.
That you can see, and then it's gone.
We're releasing the recordings now because we want to find the killer of JonBenet. We believe he's still out there.
When I walked up to the district attorney's office that first day, there was just press all over the place. I knew Smith and the investigator that's going to be working that Ramsey case.
It was 3 months after JonBenet's violent death when the Boulder district attorney asked Lou to join the murder task force. Almost immediately, he bucked the thinking of local detectives by declaring the Ramsey family wasn't involved.
So when I first day, everything is telling me that something is wrong here.
After reviewing evidence Boulder police had ignored, Lou was convinced the murderer had broken into the family home. And his new theory wasn't something his colleagues wanted to hear.
I really think that it.
Lou broke into the home, folks. Undetected. Undetected.
There's an intruder.
He broke through the home. Let's go. Let's watch it again. This is outside the Ramsey home. Undetected.
The murderer had broken into the family home. And his new theory wasn't something his colleagues wanted to hear.
I really think that it is an intruder. And it's looking more and more like that all the time. However, every time I bring that up, that we have to look at it more closely. I'm shot down.
Journalist and author Paula Woodward, who's been covering the case since day one, says Lou's work was impressive.
If it was anybody else, you got to remember, this is what you're, in my opinion, I think the information that you may be forgetting about is that law enforcement did not check that home. They asked the people inside that home to start looking, which is totally against protocol. It's totally against protocol. Law enforcement should have been the one looking in that home, not law enforcement with people. And it wasn't just the Ramseys that were looking for her. They had a house full of people that were also looking in every room. Again, I just want to make sure you guys are allowed to have your opinion. Again, there were like 2 police officers in that entire home. Everybody was looking for JonBenet. Anyways, Prairie, believe what you want. You can still, I don't know what to tell you. While you keep looking at the parents, the real killer's out there. Just saying. I don't know what else to tell you. I mean, they've been looking at the parents for a quarter of a century. Let's put it in perspective. It's not the parents.
Made him enemies.
Lou Smith took all the reports, put them together, collated them, centralized them, and in doing that, he said the evidence is not there that the family did it. The
evidence is not there that the family did it. Now, mind you, the people that initially ran this investigation were not homicide investigators. When a homicide investigator got involved, he broke into the home undetected and he acknowledged that it wasn't the parents. It wasn't until decades later, or a decade later, that the parents were finally cleared. But again, the parents were finally cleared. It doesn't make sense to you, Prairie. It doesn't make sense to you. Why don't you, and this is my suggestion, a lot has changed since this case aired back in 1996. A lot. If you want to find out why the parents were cleared, that should be, in my opinion, your focus of the investigation, especially if you believe the parents are still involved after a quarter of a century. And, you know, DNA, you know, they have not, explain this to me, Prairie. Why is law enforcement failing to process the DNA? We all know DNA breaks cases wide open. What would be the purpose of, you know, Boulder, Colorado not processing the DNA? And if they processed the DNA and it came back to somebody other than the family, would that be enough for you to believe that the parents aren't involved? And that goes for all the people in here that still believe that the parents are involved in this crime. Don't you think that DNA would be beneficial? I mean, at least it would give us the information. When they're withholding DNA and failing to process it, what would be the purpose for that? I mean, especially if the DNA could potentially say that John or Patsy did this to their daughter, right? I mean, you're saying that you believe they did it. Well, they have DNA that has not been processed that could point right to the parents and say, oh, yeah, they did it, right? Instead of us speculating who did it, they've got the DNA. Process the DNA. Let's find out. That's where I'm coming from. I truly believe the parents have been properly vetted for a decade, for 25 years. And I think if police are now saying that they have been cleared, I believe that they have been cleared, because we never hear that in any other case. We haven't heard the parents are cleared in Summer Wells' case. We haven't heard that the parents were cleared in Michael Vaughn's case. We haven't heard the parents are cleared in Cody Bixby case. So when law enforcement actually comes out and says the parents are cleared, I have to believe that the parents truly are cleared, especially when they've been fighting with Boulder Police Department for a quarter of a century. And now we still find out there's DNA not being processed. It's hard for me to now state that the Boulder Police Department was correct in their analysis that the parents were involved. I absolutely believe they botched this case from the beginning to the end. The police can lie. You're right. Then why don't you say that for Summer Wells? You know what I'm saying? The parents, it's like we pick and choose when we want to believe the officers and when we don't.
Evidence is pointing to an outsider having broken into the house. As soon as he said that,
there is that suitcase that Benny Keys was discussing right there. by the window, the suitcase where it looked like somebody, it looks like they stepped in that window, but they needed help out of the window, and they had to step on that to get their leg up over that window to get back out through the way that Lou broke in undetected. And it is crazy how easy he was able to break in that home undetected.
He was ridiculed, besmirched, just savaged by the Boulder Police Department.
Sounds familiar, right? When anybody tries to say what other people don't want to believe, they are crucified. Just saying.
After only 12 months on the team, Lou left in frustration, but continued investigating for the family.
Thousands of tips were called in to the Boulder Police Department during the initial investigation. 98% of all tips were called in whenever you called in.
Over the years, he compiled a long list of suspects from undeveloped leads, which he gave to his daughter just before he died in 2010. Cindy Mara took up where her father left off and began the difficult task of collecting DNA samples from every suspect on the list. It's now her hope that if John Ramsey wins his battle for access to the DNA of the unknown male found on JonBenet's clothing, it will provide a match with someone on the list of suspects.
He gave me a name. He said, this is who you need to start with. We decided that we would try and do our best to carry that on, to not let the case die.
Do you still have hope, John, that your daughter's killer will be found?
I have some hope, yeah. I think DNA technology has advanced, continues to advance, and if it's used, may lead to a solution. I'm going to keep pushing, certainly, as long as I live, that the right things be done, but it may not be solved. I don't know.
John Ramsey's request to the Colorado governor for access to the DNA has so far been met with silence. Without it, John is unsure how the murder will ever be solved, or how he'll ever be able to honour his little girl. It's a thought that breaks his heart. When you think about JonBenet today, what goes through your mind? What do you say to your little girl?
Frankly, I'm sorry I didn't protect you. That's a dad's job. And that's my regret. And I would tell her that, I guess. But she knew she was loved, no question. And we miss her, and we'll see her again.
Hello, I'm Sarah Arbo. Thanks for watching 60 Minutes.
That is just a heartbreaking case, and I still can't, well, Prairie, that's great. I just don't mimic that. I think what you're doing in here is just, it's not right to this family, especially after everything they've been through. We all can agree that this case was botched from the beginning. The parents have been fully cleared by law enforcement and law enforcement agencies. And I really do believe that it's time to look past the parents and get to the bottom of this. And it also makes me very, very, very upset that we have untested DNA that could provide a wealth of knowledge in this case that has haunted all of us for many years. I still haven't seen the governor. Let me see. Colorado. Jared Polis. So there you go, guys. For those that would like to reach out and demand that they turn over the DNA evidence so we don't have to speculate. Like with Prairie, Prairie is just set that the parents did it or the father did it or somebody did it for the family. I'm on the opposite end of the spectrum where I don't believe And he even said that John reminds him of Don. I don't think John reminds me of Don at all. And I'm sorry, but let's not become an investigator just yet. Let's find out whether you're legit, because I'm telling you, it's kind of hard now after fighting tooth and nail to be considered cleared, that we now are bringing the parents back in, especially when they're failing to test the DNA. Shame on Boulder for not investigating. They're the obstruction to the investigation. Move out of the way. What does it hurt to test this DNA? If it's never been tested before, why in the world are they fighting testing this DNA? So there's another, so there it is, the state capitol, 200 East Colfax Avenue, room 136, Denver, Colorado, 80203. And Governor Polis, it's GOVERNORPOLIS at state.co.us. The phone number there to the governor's office is 303-866-2471. For anything, I think we need to be emailing them and demanding that they test the DNA. Test the DNA. We are tired of guessing. We don't care about pissing contests. We don't care about macho-ness. We don't care about your ego. We care about this little girl that has not had justice yet. While you guys have been diddling around for a quarter of a century, this girl deserves justice, and so does her family. And so does her family. And you know what, Polis? If it's the father, it's the father. But test the damn DNA so we can find out. Don't you agree? Or Prairie? Don't you agree? I hope the family isn't involved either. But, let's be honest, Prairie. Test the DNA. Why should we be sitting here second guessing when we have some of the most advanced technology in DNA? We've got people willing and able to assist in processing the DNA, and the people that are blocking this important evidence. And you know what? JonBenet John Ramsey, in my opinion, should be going after this police department civilly. He should be going after this police department civilly and having a court force that police department to turn over that DNA evidence. If he wants that DNA evidence and they are doing this, he needs to stand up and fight. Start getting attorneys involved. Start petitioning. You don't even have to have an attorney to pro se and petition the courts for this. You may want to, so you're not blocked with technicalities and things of that nature. But somebody needs to be reaching out. If you are a legal scholar and you are able to, you are licensed to do legal work in Colorado, reach out to John and help him with a civil action against the police department to force them to turn over that DNA for proper processing. You didn't offend anybody. It's just, I just wholly disagree. And I'm sorry. I was using you as an example because you were in here saying stuff. And I just don't, at this point, I believe we were all filled with such misinformation because the Boulder Police Department didn't know what the hell they were doing. They screwed this case up royally from the beginning. And the only way they could have explained it, because, back in these days in the 90s, you swept shit under the rug, excuse my language. You didn't admit when you were wrong. Back then, there was no transparency like there is today. We've made laws for our government to be more transparent to its employers, i.e. us, the people. And now we have more open record laws, and we're able to hold these entities accountable for their action. Whereas back then, we didn't have this ability to do so. We do now. So if you are a legal scholar in Colorado, reach out to this family, reach out to John Ramsey and help him do it pro bono, do an act of goodness for somebody you don't know. Take this case on for his benefit to force them to release the DNA. We're going to find out if they have, because this was done 2 days ago and we have an update. So here's the update that we have. There's still a renewed push to solve JonBenet Ramsey's murder. Bullhorn Betty channel is definitely on the bandwagon. I'm ready for this to be solved. Boulder County, Colorado. It's been 25 years since JonBenet Ramsey was found dead. Her murder is considered by many to be one of the most notorious cold cases. Now there's renewed effort to find the person responsible for her murder. JonBenet's father and half-brother are petitioning Governor Jared Polis. We just had that information for those that would like it. There it is. Screen capture and do your part. Where was I? Jared Polis to hand over the DNA samples the Boulder Police Department has collected and allow a company, Parabon Nano Labs, to do the DNA testing. They're not asking for that. They're asking for this to be handed over to a reputable DNA processing entity, and they are failing to do so and failing to process this DNA themselves. JonBenet's father, John Ramsey, spoke about the efforts to find his daughter's killer in an interview with 60 Minutes Australia. We just watched that. We want to do whatever can be done technically to and resource-wise to find the killer of our daughter. And if we do that, and we can't, then we will have to live with it. So they're reiterating this in this article, that he's saying, let's at least try to see if we can pull DNA from this sampling. And if we can't, at least we tried. At least we tried. That's what we need. That's what we can expect. Right? You don't just put, who the hell is the Boulder Police Department preventing proper evidence being processed? I want people to put that, think about that. A police department actively hindering the process of evidence. It blows my mind. It blows my mind. And you know what, Prairie? I'm right where you are. If it's the parents, let's call it what it is. If it's not, let's call it what it is. But the first step to being able to know who's responsible is processing all the evidence of the case first. And they still have yet to do it. They still have yet to do it. It's sick. A Parabon scientist said it could take just a few hours to identify DNA collected from the crime scene, just hours. And the Boulder Police Department is hindering that process. And I'm going to keep saying that. The Boulder Police Department is hindering the process. It's not us. It's not anybody else. It's them. So it's like a big puzzle. We have all the puzzle pieces. We have to put all the puzzle pieces back together little by little is what I'm doing all day long to build the family tree of these individuals that are sharing DNA with unknown suspects. So I'm not going to go ahead and read this. There is one thing that I do want to point out is that there is a change.org petition. I do not like, the petitions are okay. I don't like them. You know what I like? What I find to be the most bang for the buck is not having 2 or 10,000 signatures on a petition. You know what it is? It's the governor having 2 to 10,000 emails in his email box when he comes to work. That's the impact. That's the impact. So while I do advocate for, if you would like to sign the petition for justice for JonBenet, if you're going to sign that petition, when you sign it, send an email off to the governor as well, Governor Jared Polis. Okay? Send an email also off to him and demand that he request the Boulder Police Department to hand over the evidence to the proper places that they can do it themselves. I don't care where they process the evidence as long as it's done properly, right? I think at this point we can all agree that we just don't have the confidence in Boulder County at this point related to this case because they screwed it up horribly, and then they won't even acknowledge the fact that they screwed this case up so horribly. So that's Bullhorn Betty's 2 cents on the JonBenet Ramsey case. I thought it was important. I thought it was an important enough case that we wanted to bring it forward today, so that each of you guys could actually, be brought up to snuff with what's going on. There are things moving in this case. We just need to keep it going. It's possible, Prairie of Dirty Cops. I don't know. It's kind of weird because Benny Keys even alleged with that high-tech boot and the fact that it appeared that she had stun gun marks on her body, that it wouldn't surprise us if we find out the person that's responsible actually had a law enforcement background. That's what BK had indicated in May. So, it is possible, Prairie, that there are dirty cops, and that would explain a lot too. Okay. Give me just a second. Phone lines are open, folks. Somebody said they wanted the phone lines open. I just opened the phone lines. So if you guys would like to call in and let me know what your thoughts are. Prairie, wait, what? A stun gun? Yeah, that's what BK said, that she had marks on her consistent with a stun gun. And the high-tech boot print. He went that far to say that it was potential. There was potential there for, somebody that had prior law enforcement or active law enforcement at the time that could have been responsible. So I thought it was kind of, when you stated that dirty cops, yeah, that's on the table. It's on the table. Who was it? Here we go. This is Betty.
Hi, it's Amy. Hi, I called the governor of Colorado.
Good.
And they say they have a voicemail. It's good to maybe even flood that. Everybody give it just a quick phone call, leave a message, to really fill it up so no one can leave a message on their voicemail.
Yeah.
My opinion. But I'm not a fan of this governor. I don't think he's effective. They've been trying to get rid of him. There were these people I was following for a while. I think they were trying to recall him. He's ineffective, and he's not good on crime, in my opinion. When he stepped into office, the death penalty was abolished. So it's just not to be political. I'm on your side with everything, but he's a very liberal kind of guy. So I don't know, a lot of these people that bend in that direction, such as this particular governor, are very soft on crime. They're the ones that keep the bad people out and put the good people in. So I just hope that they don't have to wait for another election to get something done with a real person that's going to take some action. And I'm a nurse, so in my opinion, I follow the science, like real, not the money, like part of the science, but like I would be more curious as to what the science of the technology is going to tell us, because to me that's the proof positive. And being that he's really pushing for that, why would somebody that's innocent do that? If you're guilty, if they're getting more DNA tests, that's going to rule you in to the crime. So I just think, because everybody has to wait and see what the science is going to tell us, because that's the only way I'm going to make up my mind now with DNA.
Yeah. And with this case, it has to be, because it's too much.
And maybe kind of swabs what was inside of her body, what kind of tissue samples they took from her, that may point to somebody. I just don't want to hear that, that might have been on her before the crime happened, and all that, blah, 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 and that's a contaminant, blah, 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 blah. But I really want to see what the DNA says.
Yeah.
And that's it.
I
And
think many of us, that's where I'm at, because, you know, we have been told, I mean, since I was 17 years old until a few months ago, I have always believed that the parents were involved until I heard law enforcement say they were cleared. And now Patsy's dead. They have no reason to clear her if she's, you know, there's no point in it when she's gone.
But look what we were doing. We've been sitting there watching all this lamestream, gaslighting media for these years that really put a trance on us that we really don't. It makes us totally think within this tightly confined box that, you know, people don't even want to. It's just telling us what to think. It's not telling us how to think. So I really think that YouTube opens up your mind and gives you more avenues to explore.
And what did you think about Lou being able to break in that house undetected? Easy.
It's crazy because, you know, back then I don't think they didn't have all these security systems like we have. They didn't have all the surveillance cameras. A lot of these houses, like even with these kids going missing, like my door, like I have latches on my door. If someone opens my door, I'm going to hear the beep, beep, beep. You know, like I'm going to just have you listen. Like if you open my door, I'm going to walk to my door. This is what it sounds like. If I hear, this is it. You hear this? You hear that? When I open my door, my door's open in my house, in my first level, I'm going to hear that. I'm going to know my daughter's walking out of the house. I'm going to know someone's getting in here. If my alarm is on, my alarms are going to go off.
Right.
So those are my preventive measures.
But see, in all honesty and in all fairness, back in the 90s, we didn't have the crime like we have today. There was drugs and stuff like that. But it wasn't. We didn't have to deal with people going in and robbing houses for drug money like we do. I mean, of course, it did happen, just not at the levels it's happening today.
And I listen. I won't even go away. Like I'm going to go take my daughter somewhere. I'm going with my sister. I will not travel by myself anymore with my child. I don't need to be targeted. I think everybody has to take their prevention right now. They got to really look at how they go and what's happening, because I don't trust the police are going to help us, you know. And the crime is going up in my town. It's very scary. People on community posts in my town, they're writing about things going on, and you know, it's not safe anymore, you know. But just a quick suggestion. You know, it would be a good idea one day when you're discussing summer wells to call to actually when you're on live, to call the governor's office and just tell them what you think about what they're doing and how they're handling these child cases, and why each county is not treated the same way, and why there's not a standard for each county and how they handle cases. There needs to be,
and why the law is not being applied equally in their state.
Right, and it's not fair. Why does one child in one county get more protection than another? And it's not fair, and it's inappropriate, and something has to be changed. You know, that's it. All right.
I got another call coming in.
Take care.
Thank you. This is Betty.
Hi, Betty. This is Lisa calling from Kentucky. Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay. I called the Boulder, Colorado police station just a few minutes ago, and I was asking them about the DNA. And the lady that answered the phone, she was like polite at first, and then when I told her what I was wondering about, she didn't care too much for it. She said, let me put you through to another line, which I know that I probably was not going to get another, you know, answer in the phone on that part. So, and of course I didn't, but I did leave my name and number. I mean, because, I mean, they know that they have that DNA. They just won't release it.
Exactly. And what did they say to you whenever you were asking? Just tell me a little bit about your conversation.
Well, when I first called her, of course, the girl sounded fairly young. And this is, you know, my name and so-and-so. And I said, I was just wondering if you could help me on something. I said, I was wondering about the DNA that you have on the JonBenet Ramsey case. I said, because I'm working on the case just a little bit. And she said, please hold and we'll send you to another line. And I'm like, okay. So now, when the guy that went through the window, because like I said, I've watched this for a long time. I really have. Now, when I watched him, I really believe that's when I came to my conclusion. Yes, it was probably a family friend, very close family friend.
Yeah, I think it was somebody very close to the Ramseys. I think it was somebody that knew the layout of their house. I believe it was somebody that knew a lot more, you know, in the way, like even Lou going into there, it was somebody that knew how to get into that house. You know, they may have locked their keys.
You know, he proved it. He proved that that you could go through that window.
Yeah.
And see, when that first came out too, the window was open, and that suitcase, that picture is the actual picture.
Yeah.
You know.
And everybody kept alleging that was staged. That was staged.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so.
Right. But me as a child listening to the news and them saying it appeared to be staged, that's what we thought. We thought that appeared to be staged. It was not until Lou broke into it. And he didn't even break in. He just showed how could somebody get into this house? The house was locked up. And he goes through a grate and into a basement window. And it looks, and just like anybody else, you can crawl into a place that drops down, but it's harder to crawl out of the drop down back up to the place. And that would explain why that suitcase was there. And I'm curious,
exactly,
did they take that suitcase? Did they dust that suitcase for shoe prints? You know, because clearly somebody had to have stepped on it if it was an intruder. And again, that grate, knowing that grate was there, you know, me going up to that house would have never thought to do that. So if somebody used...
Lou, he even showed on the outside part of it where it had been disturbed.
Yeah. And I heard there was cigarette butts in some location, and that was a big house.
Yes.
So people are like, well, why did the parents hear anything? Let me explain this. When I was growing up, we lived in a large house, a large 2-story home. And I can tell you as a troubled child, how many times I snuck out of that house and not one person heard me.
Oh, well, see, we was too. I'm out of a family of 10, and we lived in a 2-story house, you know? So, and we didn't always hear it, and we had a full basement, okay, the middle level, and then you're upstairs. We couldn't always hear. No. And now we honestly thought that there was somebody on the roof at one time, but that's where us kids was at. And mind you, 11 years old. Oh, by the way, this is Lady May on my
it's nice to see and nice to hear you. Thank you for calling in.
But anyway, I just wanted to call and let you know that I did call, but I will call back.
Yeah,
I will call back. I'm not done. I left my name and number, so let's see if they call.
Yeah, and keep me posted on that as well, because I'm curious, and I think everybody here.
I sure will. I sure will. I've got your email and stuff. I sure will.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And even Prairie, I mean, you believe that the parents did it, and that's fine. You know, again, let's have all the evidence processed and find out what truly happened. I mean, at this point, in my opinion, the ship has sailed on the parents. This just my opinion. But for those that still believe that the parents did this, we need to consider that, hey, we have the evidence to prove it. This is Betty.
Hello?
Hello, it's Betty.
I think you have the wrong number.
Okay, thank you. But you know, even for Prairie, I'm sure you would want the answers, especially if you think, I mean, think about it. If we've been thinking for a quarter of a century that it's not that it's the parents, and it's not, we've spent a quarter of the century blaming the people that aren't even responsible for their own daughter's death. And we have evidence that could potentially prove who was responsible. I think all of us, even the people that believe the parents have done it, want this evidence processed. At least I do. Because if it is the parents, I want it coming out that, hey, the Boulder Police Department wasn't wrong about these parents. They were, in fact, responsible for their daughter's death. And let's have it all out there, you know? It needs to be. I personally want the evidence, processed. I think it's been a long time coming. And if it proves that the parents are responsible, so be it. If it proves somebody else is responsible, find that person and bring them to justice. That's the same, I think, because this is the old number I used for our business when my husband and I were in business, and we've been out of business for quite some time, and I guess some people still have the phone number, still calling for services. Maybe I should go into handyman services again, huh? All by myself. I mean, hell, we were making some big money, but it wasn't worth it. I'm happy not being married. That bad of me? Oh, good Lord. And he's irresponsible. Like, I've been waiting for a freaking month for him to come over and change my tire on my riding lawnmower, right? He promised me if I helped him out with his problem, which I did, kind of, sort of. I told him I'd be there, and I didn't go there. I was actually on the phone. But either way, I did help him out with his problem. And in exchange, he was supposed to help me change my tire on my lawnmower. And he keeps calling me and telling me he'll be here on Tuesday or Wednesday to help me. But I've been listening to that for over a month. Let's try this. Get Amy Allen on this case. She is really good and usually spot on. Who's Amy Allen? And how do I get a hold of her? Somebody else is bringing up a new perspective. Evidence hold Navy officials responsible according to YouTube video where wife shared information overlooked. Not quite sure what that means. Send him to mow my yard. I can't even get him to fix the tire. I will come over and mow your yard if I can get my tire on my rider fixed. It's just too hard. When you have to change a tire, you got to push the lawnmower up and try to stick something up under there. It's too hard for me. I can't do it all by myself. It's a two-person job. This is Betty.
Hello?
Hello?
Yeah, hey, is this Betty?
It's Betty.
So you the one who hit my car?
I'm the one that what?
Well, you left your phone number on my windshield.
No, I did not leave my phone number on your windshield, and I would
Yeah,
never.
let me guess. You drive a green car?
No, I do not.
Listen, B, you scratch the side of my car?
Troll, go away. I don't drive a green car. Anybody with half a freaking, coconut up here knows exactly what my car looks like because it's in almost every video when I'm on the field. You're going to accuse me of doing something. At least watch my videos and know what kind of car I drive, dude. Oh my God. Tell me about myself, little boy. Tell me about myself. Anyways, guys, it's been a long day for me. I think we've been on live for over 5 hours today. 5 hours. I know it was funny. You drive a green car? No, but you should watch my videos if you're going to accuse me. I was in Dolly's clown car when I hit your car and scratched it. And believe me, if it was my car, I'd have made sure you had a big old dent in it. And it'd say, Bullhorn Betty. This is Betty.
Nick Pizza here.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Go away. Uncle Eddie, now that we know what your voice sounds like, go away. That's Uncle Eddie. on the phone app. Can you believe these people literally have nothing to do? You know what? I feel bad because I know you're watching, but I really feel bad for you that you have no life but this. And if this is you again, I'm going to just... Hello?
Hello, this is an automated message from the insider.
Trolls are thick today. Well, here, let me help you out, trolls. There, the phones are off. If my audience would like to speak on the JonBenet Ramsey case, there's the link at the top of the page. Uncle Eddie, you can call me, but would you show me your face? Amy Allen is the dead files cities. I don't know what that means. Prairie. Yeah, we'll just get if you can send me an email with her. I'll reach out to her. I'll send, I don't know who she is, but if it can help a case, I'll reach out to her. Send it to me at bullhornbetty@gmail.com, bullhornbetty@gmail.com. And Uncle Eddie, if you wanted something to say, you got something to say, you want to tell me about myself, go ahead and send me an email. Send me a love message, bullhornbetty@gmail.com, and stay off my phones. So anyways, folks, you guys take care. I love each and every one of you. I think you guys are amazing people. I want to thank each and every one of my members, my subscribers, and my mods do a phenomenal job because of yahoos like Uncle Eddie that has a major infatuation with Bullhorn Betty. It's an obsession. It's sick. It's twisted. It's demented. And they have mental problems. So be careful of the crazies on the streets of YouTube. God bless. Let's push for DNA testing in the JonBenet Ramsey case. This is not the last we're going to talk about this. We are going to be producing this governor's contact information on this channel for the next week. Every day from here on out, we are going to be advocating for this evidence to finally be tested. Enough is enough. It's been too long. We have a job to do. Each and every one of us in here watching this, each and every one of us is going to be watching this on the replay. Call that governor's office. Send that governor an email. Enough is enough. No matter if they're not tough on law, on enforcing the law, doesn't matter. When you become the pimple on the butt of a politician, you will see how quickly things get done. We need to be that pimple. Let's be that pimple. I love you guys. God bless. And don't forget to be fearless.
As you wake up in the morning, you want to find the latest, greatest information about criminal cases and have an intuitive conversation about the suspects associated with these cases. Head over to the Bullhorn Betty channel on YouTube. Get breaking news right here on the Bullhorn Betty channel. Welcome to the Bullhorn Betty Coffee Club. Enjoy your stay and enjoy your day.